Some bacteria develop antibiotic resistance due to mutations in their genes. These are chance mutations, and so new strains are formed by natural selection. These bacteria which are resistant will survive and reproduce, and so a new population of resistant bacteria is formed. The resistant strain will spread rapidly due to there being no effective treatment. In an attempt to prevent more resistive strains from being formed, antibiotics are no longer being overused, and the other uses of antibiotics, such as in agriculture, is being restricted. Antibiotics should be used to treat specific bacteria, and each course of antibiotics needs to be finished to ensure that every single bacteria has been destroyed. A famous incident with resistive bacteria is MRSA in hospitals. Resistant bacteria strain spread across hospitals easily due to doctors and nurses moving across the hospital. This resistive strain led to many deaths. Hospitals now have to keep high levels of hygiene, and both workers and visitors must wash their hands to prevent the spread of these diseases. As more and more bacteria become resistant to antibiotics, it is important to find new ways, rather quickly, to treat bacterial diseases. Classification is simply the organisation of living things into separate distinct groups. Within these groups, the individuals will have some similar characteristics. Classification of organisms allows scientists to see the distinct links between certain species. Things have been grouped depending on their structure and characteristics, and this was first done in the 18th century. The grouping of organisms today is still based on this system of hierarchy. Organisms were classified into these groups: kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Linnaeus' classification system originally had only two kingdoms, plants and animals. Kingdoms are the first classification stage, and these are the largest groups, with species having some key similarities but also many differences. For instance, all animals had no cellulose cell walls on their cells. These two kingdoms were developed into five as our scientific knowledge developed. So now we have prokaryotes, animals, plants, fungi, and protista. Now, however, after further developments, a 3-domain and 6-kingdom system is used. We're going to look at this in just a minute. Now let's have a look at species. The species groups are always the smallest groups, as organisms must be able to interbreed and produce fertile offspring to be classed as the same species. This system allows scientific names for organisms to be used, and this avoids confusion amongst scientists. Scientific names are written as the genus first with a capital letter, followed by the species and then underlined if written, or in italics if typed. The scientific name for humans is Homo sapiens. Due to the understanding of cells increasing massively over recent years, scientists decided to add an extra higher level of classification, a domain. The 3 domains are Eukaryota. These all have a nucleus, and the domain contains 4 kingdoms: protista, fungi, plants, and animals. Bacteria. These are true bacteria, and like organisms, which can photosynthesize. This domain has 1 kingdom, Eubacteria. Finally, the 3rd domain is Archaea, and these are primitive forms of bacteria, such as extremophiles. Again, there is only 1 kingdom here, with the Archaea bacteria. In this system, the prokaryotes are split into 2 kingdoms. When scientists are determining the classification of a species, they rely heavily on the behaviour and the features of the individuals. When evolutionary trees started being used, DNA analysis of the organisms started being more commonly used to determine their classification. This is due to species being able to look very different but actually being very closely related. However, observations are still often used when scientists are not in the laboratory. Scientists can construct evolutionary trees using fossils too. This is an evolutionary tree. Every time there is a split, it represents a common ancestor. These evolutionary trees can be used to see how similar features of organisms, such as wings, can be developed but for different reasons.